In this show, we are going to make some evergreen trees. I'm going to show you how to make a tree, and you can decide where and how many. Now, between the brushes we use to create those cool mountains and the brushes we're going to create today to make trees, I'm a little bit torn. I actually think I like this tree brush better. I'm not sure the effect's as good as the mountain, but it's pretty fun. I'm actually going to show you two ways to make it. We're going to do a simple method using a pixel brush, and then I'm going to introduce you to the bristle brush engine, which we haven't used yet. So let's start with the simple method. Like usual, we're going to pick a brush that we can use as a template that has some of the settings we want already. So let's go up to our presets button on the toolbar, and we're going to find DVAD C4 or Rake Large. It's called Rake Large. Let's type Rake. There, this one right here, DVAD C4 Rake Large. So Bob Ross is using a fan brush. This is similar. It's kind of why I started. I just looked for one that looks similar. And we're going to start with this brush, and then we're going to go up into the brush engine. It looks like my scratch pad disappeared, so I'm going to hit this button, right click in anywhere in this area and get our scratch pad back. And I'm still disconnected, which we want to do if we want to be able to change brushes and colors while we have this open. So if you're not disconnected, you can right click. Whoops, I just attached it. So you can go up here. If you're attached like I am now, you can right click and you can detach from the toolbar. Scratch pad seems to disappear every time I do this, so I'm just going to get that scratch pad back. And we're going to use this to find the brush we want. So what does this look like? Okay, it looks like this. Let's zoom in a little bit on our picture. So I'm just going to tap out here so my canvas gets the focus, and I'm going to hit the plus key to zoom in a little bit. Let's go in about like that. Okay, so now the size will be, when we're on the scratch pad, it'll be a little bit more appropriate. Okay, I'm going to clear that. Remember, when you hit this clear button, this gradient, it will go from the foreground color to the background color, the foreground being black and the background being white for me right now. Or I can hit this bucket fill tool and it will fill with the background color. Now, since we have this detached, we can actually choose a different background color if we want. Whoops, that filled the foreground color, and we have a new foreground to background. If you remember the shortcut key, again, I'm going to tap out here. If I hit X, we'll swap the foreground and background color. Hit X again, foreground, background. So there we go. That gives me the blue is the background color and an alternate foreground to background. That's if you want different colors in here. We can actually just use white. So I'm going to go back to white. I'm going to hit X and get, I got to tap to get the focus away from our brush engine window. I'm going to hit X, we'll swap it out, and we'll fill it up with white. That'll be a good background for us to work with this brush. So what does this brush look like by default? This isn't actually the texture we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and build a tree just like Bob Ross does in here. So one thing is this brush, the angle of the brush is following the direction that I'm drawing in. So the rotation of the brush is changing with direction. And we can change that by, let's go see what setting that is here. Obviously that's rotation. Rotation is turned on. I'm going to select that. And the first thing we're going to need to do is turn that off, because we want the brush to be flat for drawing our trees. Right now it says it's changing the rotation based on the drawing angle. So when I draw this way, it's facing that way, and then when I draw down, it's facing down, and it's just going to rotate with us. Okay, we could play around with other settings here. It's a lot of fun, but right now I know we just need to turn off rotation. With rotation off here, it's going to ignore any of the settings we have here for rotation. Later on, if you want to turn them back on, you'll get them back by clicking that tick box by rotation. So now what happens? Okay, now the brush is always vertical. Good start. Now it's not moving. Let's go back up into the brush tip, the top settings here. We have a texture, which is this rakey texture there. What is it called? 3-dotted flat. Okay. So we don't want this pen to be vertical. We want it horizontal. Let's check out these settings here. Here's the rotation. I'm going to change it to 90 degrees, or I can just type in 90 and hit enter. And there we go. Now I have the horizontal brush. That's good. Let's change to green. We're going to pick a darker mix like he does, and let's see. So we're starting to get something like he has, right? Like he kind of just goes down like this and builds a tree, and that does not look much like a tree. So what else do we need to change? I actually want to change the texture. I don't want this one here. I want the one beside it. This is 3-dotted flat too. I want this one, 3-dotted flat. It's just slightly different. And it's even on a different angle. So, and it's tiny. Let's fix the size. This is about a 1-inch brush. Bob Ross is using a 1-inch fan brush. So let's just kind of imitate that by changing our size to 100. You can remember, you can drag here, you can use the arrows, or with the blue outline on the bar, which you get just by hitting it, you can type in the exact number you want. Okay, there we go. That's pretty big. I don't think this is actually 100 pixels. That's probably some sort of multiplier with respect to the size of the texture. But now we're back vertical again, so let's change our angle. We want to go to 90 degrees. Clear that out. And there we go. Okay, so we got something that we can start working with. Another problem we have is it is always the same size. So how are we going to get those little ones at the top and the fatter ones at the bottom to make our tree? An easy way to do that is actually just use the square bracket keys to change the size of the brush as we go. Now that's not actually going to work in this window, so we're going to have to test it out on our real canvas. Let's save it. Let's call it our BR Tree Brush 1. Remember, I'm going to show you another brush using the bristle engine, which actually I like a lot better. This one's a little more simple. Before we save it to our presets, we do want to get our icon back, so I'm going to hit this. Hopefully, good, the icon's still there, and that fairly accurately reflects what this looks like. So let's just keep it like that. Save to presets. I'm going to go to the brushes. Did it show up here? BR, clear the rake search. We'll go BR, and does our BR tree brush show up? BR tree. There it is. Select that. Right click, assign a tag, we'll add it to our Bob Ross settings. I'm going to close this, and we should have, there it is, our BR tree brush, which we can start drawing some trees. And I do not want to do it in that color, and I don't want to do it on that layer. Control Z. Okay, let's create a tree layer. Hit the plus sign here. We'll add a new layer on the top. If you have the top layer selected and you create a new layer, the new layer will appear at the very top. New layers will appear above whatever layer you have selected. So each time I've been creating a new layer, I have the top layer selected. I hit the new button and it creates a new layer at the top of our stack. If you make any mistakes, you can select a layer and you can hit this delete garbage can button there and it'll get rid of your layer. And if you make a mistake and delete a layer that you didn't mean to, you can always use the Control Z key to get your layer back. Okay, we only need one of these. Double click, call it evergreen, enter, and now we have a layer to draw on. Right now this is just sap green. We don't want that. We want to mix a color just like BR did, and we'll go to our digital color mixer, which I appear to have lost. Settings, Dockers, digital color mixer. I'm going to grab it on its handlebar there and put it over top of my overview Docker. There we go. I'm going to use, let's just reset that a little bit so I can see all my colors in my palette. I'm going to use our mountain mixture, which is the last color we made and saved, that really dark color purplish. And he kind of remakes this mountain mixture on his palette, and he adds some sap green. So you can see here that I have closed Krita and opened it again. So I'm going to, instead of black, I want to choose my sap green, and he just adds a little bit of green to it. So it's a darkish color. Let's add about 25% green. Remember, this is 0% green, which would result in a just mountain mixture, and this is 100% green, which would just result in sap green. 50%, we're going to do about 25% sap green. We're going to click the mix, which will make that our active color. And we're going to use that. I'm going to go back into full screen immersive mode, And we're going to start really small at the top, and I'm just going to go back and forth with, and I'm going to slowly, you can hear me, I'm just hitting that left square bracket. My brush is slowly getting bigger and bigger, simulating a little bit more pressure. I'm pushing down quite hard, and I'm just hitting dots. Remember, you don't want to draw streaks. And we're slowly getting wider, and we're creating branches going out back and forth here. I'm just hitting dots, maybe slightly down a bit. And we're going to be going down a little bit into the water here. This tree is a bit sparse. Alright, looks okay. How about we add a couple friends to this tree? Start at the top. I'm going to reduce my brush size to something tiny, and I'm just going to start that process all over again. And as I go down, I'm just going to keep hitting the right square bracket to slowly increase the brush size. And we'll have one more over here. Shrink my brush size down. We're going to have some nice deciduous trees framing the edge of the painting, so we're not too worried about what's going on at the extreme edges. Some of this tree is probably, most of this tree is actually going to be blocked out a bit. Try practicing, create a few trees. You can delete them, you can delete the whole layer if you want. That brush gets big, that brush starts getting really big right at the end there, so just gonna pause a little bit. I think it's almost big enough. If you want it full size, you can always just go back and reselect it, and it will show up in its full glory. That's pretty big. Okay, that looks good. The last thing he does is he uses his fan brush on its edge to add a little trunk, and we can do that with our palette knife. We can just use any of our palette knives here. Easiest thing to do is just go do a temporary modification to it. We can go up into our brush engines. We want these to be vertical, so I'm just going to temporarily change the angle to, I guess we want 90. I'll type in 90. So we have we're going to create a trunk with this. Close that. Whoops! That's alright, this is just temporary, we're not saving it. So as soon as we switch away to a different brush, it'll go back to its default, and we're just gonna create a little hint of a trunk there, as Bobby says. Really lightly, not too much pressure. It's gonna smudge too, because this palette knife is a smudge brush. That's okay. Just right down in there, a little hint of a trunk. Let's create the little island that they're gonna sit on and some waves. You know how to do that. We'll do that quickly and add some highlights. We'll do that next time. And after we're done that, I'm going to show you the second way to create evergreen trees. We're going to create a new brush using the bristle brush engine, and we're going to create the larger trees over here. It's going to be pretty cool. Don't forget to save your work. Control S to quickly save your project. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you back for the next show.